Okay, friends, so here we were, right? Uh, Factors for successful adaptation. Some non-network factors, right? Especially in the context of diffusion of technology and innovation, which are actually mainstream uh, innovation sciences and diffusion sciences have been published. Again, non-network factors are the perceived benefit over a status quo, right? So what sort of benefit that technology or innovation provided to me? Now, it's not the actual benefit, it's a perceived benefit. Again, the compatibility with belief and systems, complexity or ease of use, right? So that's very important. And uh, trialability to test before actually adoption. I think the image should have some. Okay, can it be adopted? Can it be changed? No, it's not changing. Can it be resized? Okay, so I'm just hiding this camera because it's not interesting. I'm recording this second video in the PowerPoint itself, so that's why I have to hide it. Anyway, so then the author discussed the network structure and diffusion, how and what sort of things within the network structure. Again, this chapter is not very comprehensive in the sense that what I expect that all the network related, especially the type of network structure and what is the impact of that structure and diffusion, that has not been discussed by the author. Since the course is new, so I am also relatively new, so I am also looking for more and more resources. This is the second time we are offering this course, so probably in the next time I will change the source for this particular text as well. So anyway, in this section, the author discusses the S curve, right? So Rogers S curve. So what this S curve is, that the diffusion actually takes like this format. So initially, uh, only at the innovation stage, only few people are actually subscribing to that particular product or idea or technology. Then if it passes through the critical point, then it goes into the early adoption phase, where there are some people, and the research mentions that almost 13.5% of the target population actually start using or getting diffused, right? Then there is a chasm, which means that if that critical point is passed, and one of the social scientists actually mentioned that this is the critical point where more than 90% of the innovations, and especially the technical innovations, technology innovations, fail. So if that pass that phase, then it moves on to the early majority phase, which accounts for almost 34% more. So now it crosses almost 50%. Then uh, there is some follow-ups, some other people who actually then start using it. Just see the example of WhatsApp or Facebook. So I recall a couple of faculty members at IBA, they were not using mobile phones, and then after some period of time, when the touch screen phones were very much popular, so they started using the number phone, the digital phone, and then when the WhatsApp and AI and social media got so much prevalent, so they started using the touch screen phone. So they are the late adopters, right? Usually. So whatever the reason being, we are not discussing the argument or the reason. So there can be valid reasons for that, but the point is there is always these kind of people in the society. And finally, there are laggards. Probably these are the last 16% people who actually go for this. So this is the S-type curve, right? Uh, uh, which actually, and the slope of this S-type curve is usually, you can see that it's almost similar to the first part of the normal curve. So the Moore describes chasm between the early adopters and the early majority to describe the point at which many innovations fail to diffuse, right? I think he mentions the number around 80% or so. So some findings about how the network structure has an impact on the diffusion is that the innovations are often not central to a social circle. Innovators are often not central to a social circle. It means the people with the high degree centrality, with the high, even the influencers, opinion leaders, they are not usually the innovators, right? Centrality is typically correlated with conformity to social norms. So again, this is a social psychology, that if somebody is central, he has to he has to be uh, complying the norms of that particular group for which he is central. If so, for example, if somebody is atheist, for example, and he has so much following, then all the following is actually surrounding that particular person is also typically of the mindset. So he cannot come up with something which contradicts ethics. If he does so, he will no longer be that central point. The people will not accept him usually, right? So the people usually, the idea is that the opinion leaders, the central persons, they are not the innovators. So point number one finding. The second finding is that innovators occupy boundary spanning. So they are mostly the people who connect different groups. High brokerage, they have the high brokerage power. So they are the people who have the knowledge of maybe the society, social problem. They are also coming from the sciences background, so they have some idea, and then they pitch some idea. So they do not have themselves very much acceptability, very much reach in order to establish their acceptability diffusion. So they are also in a position to broker successful innovations from one social circle. So they also have the brokerage power, since they are not only that they can be innovators, but also that they have the brokerage power to bring some innovations within the circles they connect. And in contrast, actors who affiliate with a limited set of social circles are less likely to become aware of new ideas and innovations unless diffused. So these are the late adopters, right? So he affiliate with a limited set of social circles and less likely to become aware of. So the people who are more conservative, so they are less likely to have even the awareness of the what the things are happening until that things actually happen to diffuse. Moving forward, okay. So again, some findings: innovators, boundary spanners who introduce ideas, as we just discussed. Opinion leaders are the central people, and laggards are the peripheral actors. So this is the outcome of all the discussion we made in the last slide. And probably this is the 25th slide. So some of the influence strategies, now the author discussed that the normative part, how I make sure that whatever I want to get diffused in the market, maybe a product, maybe an idea, maybe a technology. So two prominent scholars the author discusses. The one is the Cialdini's principles, who actually the theory is actually more prominent in the marketing literature. And he identifies that there are 5 forces or 5 factors which helps in diffusion. The first is the reciprocity, which is sometimes even at personal cost. So he gives the example that at one point in time Mexico helped Ethiopia, and then at a subsequent point in time Ethiopia, as a reciprocation, they provided assistance to Mexico even when Ethiopian themselves was not a very rich country, or when it was itself did not have a very high standard of living. So this is the kind of thing. So this is about the B2B. Since it is coming from the marketing literature, so it's about a B2B. So B2B business in the marketing context, uh, usually there is a tendency of reciprocation. So if then there's the products or the markets or the ideas diffuse within the market because of the commitment. When some people identify themselves, uh, their self identity with that particular product or service. So for example, a good example is the post this genocide episode which is happening right now as well, unfortunately. The boycott movement, what was known as, I don't exactly recall the term. So that the Pepsi, the Coke, they have been, many of the people, they don't actually go for multinational products. They, even though the cost of the other products is same, their quality is inferior, but because of the commitment, they are still with the low level, with the tier 2 product, because of some commitment with some self identification with that particular product. Then there is a social proof. That's a peer pressure. If many of the people are using a particular product, then regardless of the verification of the quality features, people tend to use that particular product. So this is the third force. And then there is an authority to remain labeled loyal. So if there is an authority in place, then again there is a tendency to adopt something that is coming from the authority. And sometimes we do people because we do things, we buy products which the people are using whom we like, right? So that's the sort of the models, etc., who are used in advertising. And sometimes it is because there's scarcity. So if you induce a sense of urge, a sense of that something is limited, it won't be available, please do it now. So that's, since again it's coming from the marketing literature, so he's giving example in that particular context. Then the second important model, and probably the last thing in this particular chapter that the author discusses, the franchise levels, the leadership models, how a leader get to diffuse his ideas, his theories into the masses. So he actually comes up with 5 different sources of power for a leader to remain leader. So the first is the coercive power, the use of threats, right? Just like we are seeing in the international politics and even in the local politics, right? So if you do something, uh, we'll do this, we'll do this, we will verify. I just saw, unfortunately, a video from one of the scholars who met one of the very senior, probably the most senior authority figure in Pakistan, and they were very disappointed. They said that he should not talk to scholars like this. That I have ordered my forces to actually uh, directly shoot the person who does so and so, etc. So that's the coercive power. End of the day, people do get influenced. Then reward power, offering incentives, right? Then legitimate power based on formal authority, right? So there is a difference between the legitimate power and coercive power, right? So coercive power is sometimes the person who, or the authority who's making the coercive power, does not have the legitimate right, but even that exercise the coercive power, right? Whereas legitimate power is that the society has accepted that this person is the head of, so for example, somebody in the family some very senior member of the family is usually taken as the head of the family, so everybody follows him. So he has a formal authority, no coercion as such, but again, people do follow him. So his ideas, whatever he wants, actually get diffused in the family, for example. Then there are expert power, right? So derived from the knowledge. So if somebody has a certain knowledge, certain expertise, then he exercises that power. So people listen to economists, for example. In the political economy, people listen to scientists, for example. People listen to doctors in the health related matters. And the finally, which French and Raval maintains, which is the most important, which is the most prevailing, not prevailing, but which is the most lasting power, is the referent power, which is based on charisma and admiration. So if your character, if people like you because of something in you, then it doesn't matter whether you are an expert or you have a legitimate authority. You don't need to exercise courtship power. You don't need to offer rewards to people. People will follow you, right? So this is the prophets or the saints whom people usually follow, and their ideas propagate in the society. The author combines then this 5 powers theory with the Kalman's attitude change model, and he says that the first two, the coercive power or the power because of it's not going back. Okay, it's not going back. Anyway, so the first two powers, when it's because of the reward or because of the coercive power, so people do comply. They change the behavior without changing their beliefs, right? Then at the other stage, the next stage, when the power actually is more dense, is the power is more internalized, then beliefs start to change to match the admired change to match admired others. And internalization is the final step where you feel what you do. You do something strange, you get to diffuse with something very new, but you accept it as you, as your core belief, right? So this is the way the people convert from one religion to another. And he maintains that the coercive and reward power, they are short term. The legitimate and expert power, they usually remain at the identification phase, and the referent power is a lasting realizations. So in practice, the counterinsurgency work with opinion leaders, the takeaways, right? So it's not just go for ये अपनी मर्जी से बोलता है इसे उठा लो. It doesn't work, right? So you have to take opinion leaders on board, right? And then go through them and then make your case. In the industry, managers navigate informal networks and come up with the opinion leaders, right? So I shared an example of a case in an industry, a project that we did with a PGD students, right? And the marketing, the target central network nodes, right? So they always identify the influencers, they pay them, and the crime prevention address social strain and opportunity. So these are some of the takeaways within the context of network science and